Hello, friends. Welcome to Literary Concepts. Today's topic is neoclassical criticism. Now, let us try to understand the fundamentals of neoclassical criticism. Neoclassical criticism emerged during the late 17th and 18th centuries. So, it was started during late 17th and 18th centuries. So, this neoclassical criticism, the neoclassical period, often considered as the age of enlightenment. So it was considered or referred as age of enlightenment. So it is characterized by a strong emphasis on reason, order, adherence to classical principles. So we see during this neoclassical criticism or neoclassical period, we find that there was a strong emphasis giving more importance to reason, order, and adherence, and strictly following the classical principles, the classical norms and rules. So, particularly those articulated by understand the those articulated communicated by Greek and Roman critics, particularly. So the uh, the principles, the classical principles, the classical rules and norms expressed by Greek and Roman critics like Aristotle, Horace, and Longinus. So this era of criticism, the neoclassical criticism, valued literature that reflected rationality, moral purpose, and adherence to established rules. Understand? So during this time, the criticism gave value to literature which focused more on rationality, moral purpose, and adherence. So strictly following to the established rules. Understand, this is about the introduction of the neoclassical criticism. Now let us try to understand the key characteristics of neoclassical criticism. The first characteristic is imitation of classics, so that is following or copying the classics. So literature was expected to follow the models of ancient Greek and Roman works. So during neoclassical time, so literature was expected. They tried to follow, they tried to emulate the ancient Greek and Roman works. And critics emphasized mimesis, that is imitation following, as both an artistic and intellectual practice. So that imitation, that mimesis, was considered as an artistic and intellectual practice during neoclassical criticism. So, the second characteristic of neoclassical criticism is emphasis on reason and order. So, giving prominence to reason and order, rationality and logic were seen as the highest human faculties. Understand? So, rationality and logic were considered as the highest human talents, faculties, skills. Understand? So, literature should embody, so literature should personify, represent that order, balance, and harmony. So that is that order should be represented in order, balance, and harmony. These aspects should be represented in literature. So that is the focus on reason and order during the neoclassical time was given prominent. The next characteristic is rules and decorum. So decorum is that is politeness, decency, and dignity. So writing was governed by strict rules. So during neoclassical time, so whatever that works were written, so it was completely determined and decided by the strict rules regarding genre, form, and style. Okay, they have to emulate the follow the strict rules regarding the genre, form, and style. And decorum required characters, language, situations to align with their social status and purpose. According to their social status and purpose, so the decorum was uh, the decorum was implemented, so that is in character, in language, in situations. Understand that decency and dignity we find in that character, language, and situations. So as per their social status and their purpose. So therefore, the third characteristic is following the rules and following that decorum in the neoclassical criticism. The fourth characteristic is moral and didactic purpose. So didactic, that is a teaching, moral teaching. So literature was expected to instruct and improve society. So during that time, neoclassical time, so literature was considered as to instruct, to give instructions, to improve society, and which reflecting universal truths and moral lessons. So through literature, we have to reflect, we have to express the universal truths and moralities, so that by expressing, by writing on these things, so the literature should instruct and improve the society, the morals in among the people. So that's why moral and didactic purpose. Okay, the moral teachings were given prominence during the neoclassical time, even in neoclassical criticism. The next characteristic is universality. Understand? Criticism emphasized, neoclassical criticism emphasized universal values and timeless standards over individual expressions or innovations. Instead of giving more prominence to individual feelings or expressions or innovativeness, that is uh, new innovations. So here, criticism given more prominence or emphasized more to universal values and timeless standards. So that is universality. These are the important characteristics which we find in neoclassical criticism. Next, now let us learn about major figures and their contributions during neoclassical criticism. The first critic, the first figure is John Dryden, so whose time span started in 1631 and ended in 1700. So his important work is an essay of dramatic poesy, which was published in 1668. John Dryden's important work is an essay of dramatic poesy. So John Dryden's contributions are, so he supported for the adaptation of classical rules to English drama. So John Dryden supported for the adaptation. Understand? So modification of classical rules are following the classical rules to English drama, and he argued for the use of rhyme in plays. So he argued for the use of rhyme in plays as it added structure and dignity. So he supported for the use of rhyme in plays, that is in dramas, so which added, the rhyme added structure and dignity. Understand? And then he promoted the three unities, that is time, place, action, though with the practical flexibility. So we find that the flexibility in use of that three unities, that is unity of time, unity of place, and unity of action. So John Dryden promoted to use these three unities with the practical flexibility. And he valued reason and wit as essential qualities of literature. So he gave more value to the reason and wit, that is cleverness, as essential qualities, very important qualities of literature during the neoclassical time, neoclassical criticism. So the next critic is Alexander Pope, whose time period started in 1688 and ended in 1744. Pope's important work is an essay on criticism, which was published in 1711. His important contributions are, the first one is he summarized neoclassical principles in rhymed words. Understand? So he gave the summary of the neoclassical rules in rhymed verse, and he stressed the importance of learning from nature and classical models. So he gave importance to the learning from nature as well as the classical models, that is from ancient Greek and Roman writers, Roman works. And then he supported for balance between artistic innovation and adherence to established norms. So he supported for the, we have to maintain that balance between artistic innovation, and then following the established norms and rules. And the next point, the next contribution is he emphasized the humility and good taste, that is that humbleness and modesty and good taste in both writers and critics. So these two things, that is humbleness and good taste, should be there in writers and in critics. The next critic is Nicholas Boileau. Nicholas Boileau, so whose time period started in 1636 and ended in 1711. His important work is Art Poetic, so which was published in 1674. So Nicholas codified the rules of neoclassical criticism, especially for French literature. So Nicolas Boileau belongs to French. So he codified, that is, he arranged, systematized the rules of neoclassical criticism, particularly for French literature, and he supported for clarity, simplicity, and adherence to classical models. So he advocated for the clarity and simplicity and adherence, that is, strictly following the classical models. And he believed in literature's role in cultivating taste and moral refinement, so that he he believed, or he advocated, that literature plays a important role in developing taste, good taste, and moral character, moral refinement. So these are the important contributions of Nicholas Boileau. The next critic is Samuel Johnson, whose time period started in 1709 and ended in 1784. His important works are, the first one is Preface to Shakespeare, which was published in 1765, and the next work is Lives of the Poets, which was published between 17 written between 1779 to 1781. So Samuel Johnson's important contributions, the first one is he balanced the classical ideals with an appreciation of individual geniuses. So even he just used the classical ideals, at the same time appreciated the individuals, every each and every person's genius talent, and he defended Shakespeare's deviations from classical rules. So he defended, protected, supported to Shakespeare's diversion from classical rules, and arguing for the primacy of human nature. So that is the priority of human nature over rigid form. So we have to give priority to human nature rather than the strict rules. And Samuel Johnson criticized excessive adherence to rules. So excessively, strictly following rules, he criticized to that, and if it hindered artistic truth and creativity. So if it hampers, if it obstructs artistic truth and creativity, then he criticized to that we should not excessively strictly follow the rules of classical models. Understand? So these are the important key contributions and the key concepts discussed by Samuel Johnson. And the next critic is Joseph Edison, so whose time period started in 1672 and ended in 1719. His important works, essays in The Spectator. So, some of the important essays we find in the Spectator Journal. So, his important contributions are, so addition popularized neoclassical ideas through accessible essays, through available reachable essays. He popularized the neoclassical ideas, the neoclassical thoughts, and he discussed the moral and aesthetic qualities of literature. Joseph Edison discussed the moral and aesthetic qualities of literature, particularly its capacity to refine manners, its capacity to refine the behavior. Understand? These are the important contributions of Joseph Edison. The next critic is Voltaire. So, Voltaire, whose time period started in 1694 and ended in 1778. His important uh, some of critical essays and plays are there. His key contributions are, so he was a champion of neoclassical principles in French literature. So Voltaire belongs to French, and he promoted and supported the neoclassical principles in French literature, and he advocated for wit, clarity, and moral purpose in writing. So he supported for that wit, cleverness, and the clarity of thought and moral purpose in writing. These are the key concepts discussed by Voltaire. Now, let us try to understand some of the key concepts which we find in neoclassical criticism. The first concept is the three unities. So, that is the unity of time, unity of place, unity of action. So, unity of time, that the action should occur within a single day. Within a single day. Understand? The action should happen within a single day. So, that is unity of time. Then, unity of place is the action should be confined, it should be restricted to one location, only in one place. And the unity of action, so the plot, the storyline should have a single cohesive, that is togetherness storyline, without subplots, without any division or without any subplots. It should contain one single plot, one single storyline. So these are the three important three unities, that is unity of time, unity of place, and unity of action. So this concept is discussed in neoclassical criticism. The next concept is decorum. So that is dignity and decency. So characters and events should be appropriate to their context. So whatever the characters are there and the events are depicted, those characters and events should be appropriate to that particular context or situation. And language and style must suit the subject matter and the audience. So whatever the language and the method of writing, that is the style, uh, are used, that should be appropriately as per the subject matter and audience. So that is the second concept which we find in neoclassical criticism. And the third concept is nature. So nature is often equated with universal truth and order. So nature is equaled with universal truth and order, and writers were encouraged to emulate the harmony and balance found in nature. So writers were encouraged during neoclassical time to follow that harmony and balance which we find in nature. So the third concept which we see in neoclassical criticism is nature. The next, the fourth one is wit, that is the cleverness, the intelligence. So wit was valued as intellectual brilliance. It was a intellectual brilliance and refined humor. It was a refined humor. So it was considered as a hallmark of good writing and criticism during neoclassical time or even in neoclassical criticism. So it was a hallmark of good writing. Wit was a hallmark of good writing and criticism. The next concept which we see in neoclassical criticism is imitation. So writers were encouraged to study and imitate classical masters, that is Plato, Aristotle, Longinus. So writers were more encouraged during this neoclassical time. So to study and follow the classical works of Plato, Aristotle, Longinus, and different classical uh, writers from Greek and Roman literature, understand, to achieve greatness. For what is the reason? To achieve greatness just like the classical masters. And the last concept which we find in neoclassical criticism is moral purpose. So literature should improve individuals and society. So in neoclassical criticism or neoclassical literature, we find the literature should improve, develop individuals and society, offering ethical guidance, that is moral guidance. It should offer, it should spread that moral values and ethical values through literature. So these are the key concepts which we find in neoclassical criticism. If you like the content, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much.